going on, guys? It's Dylan here. Today we will be going over a ticker symbol analysis on the ticker symbol MSTR strategy. Strategy has made some very nice movements within the last few weeks, really tempting and teasing to set those new all-time highs in these $550 areas at $500 level. We're seeing a lot of major indications on the chart, really setting it up in a spot it hasn't quite been in the last year. And according so, we've seen this very nice breakout of this massive bull flag. There's a whole lot of positive indications within the stock chart, but we will remain unbiased. We will get into a technical analysis from multiple time frames to get a very in-depth analysis of where the stock price may go. With that being said, let's go move over to the weekly time frame to get a broad macro perspective to start. On the weekly time frame, we do see this weekly bull flag continuation pattern continuing to play out in live effect. We are 5 weeks into playing out within this pattern. And the last time we did break out, we did a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 weeks of price action movement. Closer to 9, 10 if you count the end of this range. But I do think we could potentially play out and break out in this pattern longer than 3 to 4 weeks. As we did see, this move was just way too much, way too fast, moving up about 200% in stock price, which is strong. Of course it is, right? But, when it takes a little bit longer, there's a little bit slower, you're more likely to see that come out, as these flags are targeting a certain flagpole structure. With this big flagpole moving up, goes sideways, going to the ceiling, to the floor, ceiling to the floor, eventually picking a side. Buyers win, they push it back up. They're coming after a lot of these high levels. So the longer it takes to get there, as long as it remains strong, the slower the steady, is really where I'm getting at. So I do think that strategy stock chart, for many reasons, is really in the beginning of this weekly bull flag breakup, beginning close to the medium. But guys, it looks very nice. And when we look at this weekly bull flag, it formed out a lot longer, about at least 30 to 40% more candles and longer than this last flag. We do see very strong movements, as when we broke out of this bull flag, we mentioned that around 320, there really is zero resistance until the top of these wicks. As within this past massive movement in the stock, we ran up all the way to these spots, and we left a few clues as far as where roadblocks could come when stock price regains these major levels. And it's in this area, guys. We had this very exciting move up, really taking zero time to stop, set some levels. And we finally did in this area, within these general wicks. And this is really where strategies begin to found some resistance on the weekly time frame, starting to slow down, not show weakness, but really slow down, and buyers have stepped up in these massive spots. And that's what you want to see, guys. When buyers can hold stock price into major resistance levels, that really goes to show, what their intentions are. From the psychology, we clearly see very nice price action movement, and these buyers are threatening to take out this level to really move into this big gap zone. So right away, guys, once these levels do get cleared, man, it can get very exciting very quickly. As once these highs are broken around that 440 strong, there's zero resistance on the weekly, daily, monthly, whatever time frame you pull up until 543. As we see one massive wick on the weekly time frame came up and wicked at this spot, but price wasn't in that area for too long. So there's virtually zero resistance. So once $440 do break, it is almost like the floodgates being open. There is things that can happen along the way. Of course, right? It's a stock chart. It's a very liquid in the moment thing. But based off the data we have right now, guys, buyers do look like they want to take out that level. As within the weekly time frame, each and every week, we're setting these lows moving up higher, despite having some wicks and momentarily a red candle on the weekly time frame right at this resistance level. It's continued to hold up. Last weekly candle, it's not done being printed just yet, but on the weekly time frame, it is set up for a potential bullish engulfing candle, which if that does happen, especially coinciding breaking that 440, which definitely could happen on the weekly time frame. That'd be an extremely bullish move, as this candle would completely engulf the open and the close of this candle, especially at a very massive spot. If that does happen, the stock price would be very, very primed to move past this gray area zone and get really exciting, guys. So looking away, it does make sense large a little bit of a halt at this level. I think it's perfectly healthy, and if anything, seeing the hold up from buyers pushing in, especially with this contested or possible rather bullish engulfing on the weekly time frame, I think things look great. So with that being said, let's go move over to the daily so we can get a little bit more information as far as a medium term analysis. So on the daily time frame, we're looking at the 5 times more zoomed in perspective, as each one of these candles, of course, represents one day rather than 1 week. We do see this very nice bull flag breakout, and we've seen some nice structure. You know, we did start to move quite linear before kind of getting a little bit more up, down, and more of a consolidation, you know, and that's been the ring we've been doing over the last few weeks on the channel, really the last week or two, just mentioning that $400 level is a very key spot. As when you look in the past, we did mention, you know, the stock just ran all the way up, zero breaks really after that 270 level. We gapped up right into that 300, broke through that psychological level and rushed all the way to 543, not really setting a lot of resistance at all, besides eventually coming back down. And this is the biggest phase we do have as far as data points for where the stock might run into as of now, with this general area over here. And the middle point of that was that $400 level right here. You know, this rough area, you know, that couple dollar zone, you know, 398 to 402 or 399 to 402, that general couple dollar area. But really the center point is that $400 level. You know, we got jammed up in this area for a long time. Once we did break over it, we did an exciting move, came back down, we tested it, sunk beneath it, we came back up, tested it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before breaking over for 1 day, not being able to get a hold over that, sinking right back beneath to that level just about exactly, and really bouncing around that spot, never being able to hold over that level. Stock price sunk, came grinding right back up, and then where was the top? Around that $400 level. See, as we wicked out once right here, and then we have the close of that candle right there. So, or sorry, the open. So yeah, guys, we have a lot of data points as far as that level goes. And not only, you know, do we have that level, it matches up with that psychological hard number, $400, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, right? Which leads into our next point, guys. Once we break 440 and we get over, you know, the top of these wicks over here in this next data point, there's zero resistance as far as the next zone. So that's about $100 in a gap. You know, this is a massive gap, guys. We do have this psychological $500 resistance mark up on the chart, as that's a very, very major milestone spot. You know, we did 1 wick over there, which does kind of validate it, but it's more of a psychological. So you could make the argument that once 440 and these highs are taken out, you know, it's a pretty smooth sail to 543. And of course, that is a big jump in price action. It would take a couple of days, weeks, you know, it wouldn't just immediately go up in one massive candle, but we never know, guys. You know, we've seen some very exciting movements in the past. Once we did get over that $400 level, we did hold $400 for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days before previously being pressed up against it once, twice, and 3 times over here. So it's really been a back and forth, where this has been the middle zone. The last video we did make was at this doji candle, which was printed right exactly at that $400 level. So you do see it was printed right exactly there. We mentioned, guys, if we can hold this 400, you know, the short-term momentum will be nice. We're pressed in between these 2 spots on the daily time frame. If we zoom these candles in just a little bit, you see we have 1 test to this level right here, that 422.50, 1 test, 2 tests, 3 tests, 4 and 5, perfectly at this level in between that 400. So there's a bit of a range situation, consolidation, whatever you want to say on the daily time frame. But as long as stock holds above 400, we are in a uptrend, right? We're continuing this pattern There's a lot more higher price targets to reach. So we're definitely very bullish above $400. And, to see stock come down, momentarily break that before, after we were running into it, we regain it. And then once again, it looked like maybe we would come down to break it. And we said we're going to keep a good eye on it. And once again, guys, we held that 400. We opened the next day strong, actually printing a daily bullish engulfing on the stock chart, which is very nice, guys. We haven't seen a daily bullish engulfing like this big wide bar eating up this prior candle since, if we take a little blast from the past, we did see one right here, not too pretty, but you see a nice jump up the next day, right? And if we could try to find one, actually did see one right here, but didn't give any follow through as we're still moving in this descending channel. Not much going on, but you get the gist, guys. We've seen the weekly bull flag, the weekly bullish engulfing over here, completely eating up that candle we talked about, and that gave a nice effect. So that has been a trend on strategy that's a nice indication. So we're seeing a couple nice data points. We really are holding that level nice. We're moving back to the top of the range, and it looks good, guys. I think from a daily perspective, we're seeing everything we want to see. We apply probabilities that we definitely will come up to go test that 422.25, that 422.50, this general area where stock has been batted down previously. And we'll test that. And if we break that, guys, the next stop is 440. And after that, if that level breaks, the floodgates really do open. And the last point we will be mentioning on the daily time frame, but should be more clear on the hourly, as it's a more even, of course, more zoomed in perspective. We do have a daily bull flag forming, which is very, very nice. Right? Strategies continue to set these bull flags on many different time frames as we look on the weekly. We've been mentioning throughout the video, this massive weekly bull flag, but we have another tiny one on the daily. This massive bull flag pole like structure. Stock goes sideways, and this one is a descending flag, and the ceiling over here, and the floor being here. So to see stock pressed up in this nice linear movement, and then really pulling back in this nice tight flag, guys, it looks great. We're seeing the bullish engulfing. If you can tell, guys, we have a lot of signs. This is the best strategies look. Since breaking out at the flag, I would argue, when we covered the stock down here, there was just a ton of bullish signs, nice tight stock pressing right at these major levels after these double bottoms. I don't want to blast from the past too much, but we've seen a lot of bullish signs, and we're seeing that today, not really too many bearish signs at all, a completely healthy, natural pullback to flag out. So as far as the daily perspective, guys, we will be continuing to watch that $400 level and that 422.25, that 422.50, and this flag already, guys. Admittedly, we spent a little bit too long in the daily, really getting deep into the analysis. And now we're going over the hourly. We'll make it a little bit more quick. I don't want to spend too long in here, guys, but we do see this very nice bull flag on the hourly. It's exactly what we wanted to see. We mentioned last video hanging around this $400 zone. We really wanted to see it curl up, and we've seen multiple attempts, to break the tops of this resistance. To break the top, we come up with heat, we get stuffed. We come back up, we wick out. We run all the way back up, and then we wick out. All the way back up, and then we wick out. But on the inverse, we pointed out in the last video, we've seen this level getting threatened multiple times before buyers really stepped up very, very nicely, pushing the stock right off that zone like a trampoline and really forming up this flag. So of course, guys, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you that once we break this descending channel, we should see some very nice price action. If we have, that will be at that 418 level. But really, guys, there is a resistance right above that level. So 422.25, we're going to make that a bigger zone, as now this is really even more of a major level. Once we break over this level and hold on the hourly, right? Not like we get above it for 5 minutes, we sink below it, and then when the hourly candle is printed, it's a wick. Once we get a strong, nice hold over this area, then we should be easily moving to that 440 zone with little to zero resistance. And then from there, of course, that's the next big area that will open the quote unquote floodgates, as we've been mentioning. But on the hourly, guys, we've continued to set these higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, really moving out nice. And yes, we have set a couple lower highs, so that's where the buildup has been. But successfully holding that $400 level, pressing up to the top. It does look very nice as far as the implied probability to the upside. We've continued to mention these bull flags on the hourly playing out ever since the bull flag started to break out around that $320 level. It moved right up. We formed a bull flag right on a key level. We broke out. We had a couple of days of, very nice price action. Once again, we formed a bull flag right under a key level. We gapped up. We went from 393 to 430 before pulling back once again, and this time forming another bull flag. These times more pennant bull flag, but this time more of a descending channel, coming back down to that level before appearing as of now we are breaking out. A lot of nice signs in the hourly chart, guys. We'll continue to watch these higher lows being set. But as of now, man, let's not get too redundant. We're getting a lot of the same data points on the daily, transcribing to the hourly. So we'll be watching these major levels. Something you don't want to see as far as short-term support on the hourly. It's that 407.50 level being broken. So there's a lot of confluence in these areas. At that point, we would be moving at least to the 50% retracement of this flag, which perfectly aligns the 400. So if we do start to dip early and break that 407.50, that general area, then it is likely to come down for another test, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but that is something we will be keeping an eye on. Pretty improbable, though. Honestly, I think, with the spots we have, it's good, possibility we do just continue to confirm and set through these levels. So with that being said, let's go and jump over to Bitcoin. Really wrap up this analysis, as Bitcoin has a huge impact. Doesn't take a rocket science to tell you that one either. On strategy stock chart, and I am very, very bullish on Bitcoin. I've continued to remain bullish on Bitcoin, ever since, these lows down here. We mentioned this on the channel, and once again, it confides exactly with strategy. We have a weekly bull flag continuation playing out. Very, very nice. Even though we have gotten some decent movement, it is not the end, guys. When in doubt, zoom out. I really do think this is still, the beginning to the midpoint of this breakout of these patterns. And with that being said, guys, we mentioned in the last video, we're pressed up against this major resistance level, as this was the most key spot on Bitcoin chart, where we literally held for 3-4 weeks in this very volatile phase in this range. We held very nice against that for a long time before eventually collapsing below these lows. And that's how we confirmed the move down to the bottom of this range to eventually collapse. So we're looking at a very similar situation on Bitcoin. We mentioned this in the last video. We're getting really, really tight with these lows over here and these highs. Over the last day, we came exactly down to this low area, bouncing exactly off and confirming the breakout over that $105,000 level. Roughly about that. You could say 106, 105. We do want to see Bitcoin hold over here. It's all we really want as of now, because it's in that nice spot. It doesn't necessarily have to break out and run all the way up to 110K tomorrow. It could, it definitely could, but as of now, stop holding over that $105,000 level. It is a win for Bitcoin. We do see a couple tops in the hourly, but not concerned. I think it's normal volatility. As far as a short-term perspective, we do have this ascending support, which could continue to play out. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more touch points validate that as far as the next few days to come. So we'll keep an eye on that, but as of now, guys, we don't want to get too redundant, as this does mirror strategy in a lot of ways. It does appear we are breaking out the top of this range. And if we do that, guys, the floodgates open. So we're seeing a lot of double confirmation, guys, a lot of exciting stuff. Keep an eye on that $400. That general area is at the very key pattern support and a psychological level. Keep an eye on 422.25 as a short-term resistance, where if stock can really get over that and hold, we're going to go to 440. Once 440 is broken strong, once again, guys, we're going to 500. I feel really confident in that. Yeah, guys. So with that being said, we'll be continuing to cover strategy on a couple time per week basis. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, all that. Drop your technical analysis in the comments. I'd love to hear your guys' price predictions, thoughts, any of that. If you enjoyed the video, of course, like, subscribe, all that. Hope you have a good day. Take care and goodbye.